The third part of this lecture, we will briefly look at argumentation schemes. Traditionally, there was a distinction between informal logic, the one used in rhetoric, and formal logic, based on deduction and formal proof. Argumentation, for historical reasons, is the typical field of informal logic. However, we acknowledge here that in the last 2 decades, formal argumentation has become a new field in symbolic AI and logic. The most famous schematization of argument structures have been proposed by Toulmin. According to Toulmin, an argument is made by a claim C, that is a conclusion to be justified, a datum or data D, that is one or more facts, including empirical observations, called in this case also ground G. A warrant W, that is a rule or principle that justifies the passage from D to C. A backing B, that is some evidence or general reason in support of W. A qualifier Q, which expresses the force, typically in terms of strength of certainty, through which the claim C can be asserted. A rebuttal R, specifying exceptional circumstances that limit the basis for concluding the claim, typically diminishing or nullifying the force expressed by Q. For instance, suppose that the claim is that students work a lot. On which basis it has been said so? We need some datum in support. For instance, that between 27 students in the class, 15 wear athletic shoes, 7 hiking boots, and 5 sandals. But why this datum allows us to say that students work a lot? Well, for instance, because we assume that athletic shoes, working boots, and sandals are very comfortable to work with. So if you wear those, it's because you walk. A possible backing of the warrant is because these types of footwear are expressively designed to be comfortable in walking. We have a claim, a datum, a warrant that connects the datum with the claim, and a backing that supports the warrant. To complete this Toulmin scheme, we need a qualifier, giving an idea of strength. For instance, probably most students work a lot. Other qualifiers are certainly, most probably, likely, plausibly, possibly. It is also important to add some exceptional circumstances that undermine the warrant, that is, the connection between datum and claim. For instance, if footwear are in vogue, people will dress them even if they do not work a lot. 2 considerations. First, in the proposed reading of this week, Knepper's paper, rebuttal is called reservation. More importantly, datum, warrant, backing, and rebuttal can be replaced by other claims, and therefore by other Toulmin schemes. Modeling a complete argumentation means to construct a hierarchical, nested, compound Toulmin scheme. A different schematization has been presented more recently by Pollock, considering in particular the type of counterarguments that one can construct. In general, all arguments are defeasible. They can be attacked in some way. Pollock identifies 3 types of attack. The rebuttal for him is a claim saying the opposite of the main claim of the argument. For instance, if I say last year in February I was in Paris, someone else could say, no, you were in Rome. None of us has yet given any support to our own statements. We just made clear the conflict, setting the stage for an argumentation. The undercutter for Pollock is what we call rebuttal in Toulmin's scheme, or reservation according to Knepper. It is something that cuts the connection between datum and claim. A premise attack is an argument that removes one of the assumptions that were used in support for the claim. Even more recently, Verhey extending Pollock's view. We can have an attack against the datum, the premise attack of Pollock's or undermining, against the claim C, against the warrant W, the general principle used for the connection, against the connection if D then C, the specific rule instantiated on this datum and claim given the general principle, and against the connection if W then if D then C, the way in which the general principle is instantiated into a specific rule. Let us pay more attention on this point. After Toulmin, a warrant W is a general statement. For instance, if a person was born in Bermuda, then this person is a British subject. In order to apply W, we need to apply it on our specific case. For instance, if our claim is that Harry is a British subject, the connection we are looking for is if Harry was born in Bermuda, then he is a British subject. Now, let us return to an argumentation setting. There are claims left implicit and not attacked. Claims which are produced but not attacked nor justified. Claims which are argued for but not attacked. Claims which are under attack, that is, that have an argument which has not been defeated. Claims that are argued and attacked by arguments that have been defeated. This list identifies all possible configurations for a claim, but who needs to form these arguments, attacks or supports? For this purpose, we introduce the concept of burden of proof. Let us imagine that we have the following rule as warrant W. If P, then normally R. Who needs to argue which proposition? We can distinguish the burden of production from the burden of persuasion. That is, the difference between who is producing or collecting the evidence and who is proving that the evidence is indeed true. These burdens sometimes are assigned explicitly. For instance, the applicant must provide a printout of her academic technology approval scheme clearance certificate. Typically, the decision maker needs to take a decision upon a certain evidence. It may ask the applicant to provide it, burden of production. The applicant interacts with the certifying entity that has the burden to say that yes, what the applicant gave, it is true. Now, let us return to the core of this course. When you are designing a process, there are a few critical questions that you need to consider. The formality of a decision. Do you need to keep a record of something, and why? Remember that there are always costs and risks involved in keeping information. Can the decision maker decide in freedom, takes responsibility in taking the decision, or do we require specific evidence to justify a decision? What is a good argument? Can the decision maker collect evidence by itself, or should ask the applicant to do so? Do we need any external certification? What evidential requirement does the decision maker have to comply with according to the norms? What are our sources of information? Is it a valid, admissible evidence? Another strategic point of decision is the segmentation of monitoring and decision-making tasks in clusters of similar types of decisions. For instance, if you are the tax administration and you have to collect taxes, it is useful to divide the unremarkable cases from the statistical suspect cases, the justifiably suspect cases, because for instance they may hint to a potential fraud, and cases that are to be acted upon, because they do express a tax fraud. In the first case, you don't take any action. In the second, you may indicate the user the risk of paying extra taxes. In the third, you may indicate the user the risk of paying a fine. In the fourth case, you may actually attempt to punish the taxpayer with a fine. Another example. For deciding about a mortgage loan, you may not require all this distinction. You could have simply unremarkable cases for which you accept mortgage loan and statistically abnormal cases for which you simply do not accept a mortgage loan. Note, however, that this risk-minimizing attitude for the loan maker can have wrong effects in society. For instance, people that have not normal financial circumstances will end up not having access to credit, and this will push them even more to spend all their incomes for sustenance. Similar mechanisms may occur also for health insurances. This explains why, for instance, the Dutch legislation obliges a health insurance company to accept your request for a basic standard insurance, independently on your health condition, age, and etc. Without this duty, people with a serious disease may end up not having any insurance. As you see, there is a lot of these topics that affect all of us in our everyday life. You're invited to elaborate on these points while you're working on your portfolio. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to write me or start a thread on the discussion board.